going on because there's been a lot of what I call seepage or slippage, and then you refer to that as crossroads and blur. There's been a lot of that the past, I don't know, 5, 7 days.
Yeah, okay, I'll explain a little bit about that. Let's turn off the AC for a few moments. I don't have to fight that. Yeah. Okay, so here's what happens. There's a lot of seepage between different parallel alternatives. Every crossroad, no matter how small, creates an alternate, or I shouldn't say creates an alternate dimension, parallel world. It doesn't actually create it, it selects it. So the worlds are not actually created. It's like a misunderstanding of Darwin to say it creates another world. It doesn't actually create another world. It is natural selection. The same as Darwinian concept. It's natural selection. So what happens essentially is, before a number of events, there's a concatenation. Now, at this point, at a fairly large nexus, there are a lot of choice points at each nexus. A very strong nexus will have many, many points. I gave an example of Kennedy's assassination where there's everything from he never was assassinated, to the gunman missed, the gunman wasn't there, he had adequate protection, he for some reason decided to use the bubble on the limo, all the way to not only was he assassinated, but also Connolly was killed rather than just wounded. Johnson was shot. Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, they were shot also and killed. There was an attack on the houses of Congress. There was an attack on the congressional members, and so forth and so on. Basically, the government of the United States was wiped out in one single day by a group of assassins, very, very heavily armed and very, very well trained and well coordinated, which can happen.
Yeah.
So everything that can happen does happen. And where you ended up, you took a particular route, but that doesn't mean that everybody took that same route or took that same path. The path you happen to take leads here to where we are now. There are lots of choice points between 1963 and 2009. Those choice points, each one of them, tend to pack up in certain areas into what's called a nexus or a grand nexus, or a greater area called a plexus, which is a group of nexi. So in each of those, the psychics and mediums go nuts, basically. They're seeing this stuff. And what they're seeing is blur of the time track. So as they look ahead on the time track, there's lots of other, looking back, there's no blur. Because the choices have been made, the choice points have been there, the route has been followed to here. Looking ahead, the choice points start to blur. And there's a lot of sweep and blur and mix and meshing. And at this point, if you look forward, it's like having 14 or 15 films jiggling, in the way that the old films used to. They jiggle like this and like this. So they're kind of blurring on top of each other like that. And you kind of see all of these pathways, but they're overlapping each other and they're jiggling a lot. So jiggle and blur and wiggle and slurring of various kinds, different slurs, different slippery slidey, slippery slidey things are happening. From the psychic standpoint, this is people who are open to, who can see, actually, the choice points. All a psychic is somebody who can see the choice points and see the paths, the multiplicity of universe. Then there are those who are beta trained, and all they can see is the universe as it is right now, plus the universe as it was, and they can't see beyond that box. They can't see outside that box to what might be, what could be, what should be, what can be, and so forth. All the different ifs, ands, and buts that are rolling out from this point. So the rollout is invisible to them. All they see is right now. They're not in the now. They're never in the now. They're never in the present. They're living mostly in the past. And they're trying to impose the past on the present so they can understand it. So they're overlaying past images onto the present, trying to understand what the present is in relation, in light of the past, which is the comparative index that we talk about in terms of brain function. So the brain is an associative brain. The beta brain is an associative brain. This is like that. This goes with this. This reminds me of that, and so forth. That's an associative function. That's how the beta brain operates, by association and by comparison. 2 plus 2 equals 4. How do you know that? Because I have experienced that so many times that I now accept it as real.
Right.
I accept it as true. Schleswig-Holstein is a very small area, very, very tiny. And so is Liechtenstein, and so is Monte Carlo. I accept them because I see it. I've seen it on the map so many times. I accept that as true. Have I ever been there? No. I don't have any experiential data. But what I do have is a weight of information that I have now accepted as true because there's so much weight in it for me. I've seen it on globes. I've seen it on Mercator projections. I've heard about it. I've seen it on television. It's reinforced in James Bond movies that they have these little chases through, and so on. So that's how the beta brain operates. Now, when you're in the alpha in the alpha theta, you don't have that constriction. So you're looking ahead. Now, when you look ahead, you start to see this blur. And you say, so a big choice point is coming in. So that's how many psychics will say something big is about to happen. Because the choice points are weightier. There's more of them. And they're more packed together. So you get more blur of the paths. So the paths are very uncertain right now. There's something big about to happen. This is, what is this, it's May the 31st into June the 1st, 2009. So I say that at this time, something big, really big, is about to happen. For about a week, there's been a lot of blur. And psychics, if Jean Dixon were around to say, I don't know if she is or not, but if she were around to say something about it, she certainly would be talking right now and saying that something big's about to go down. Okay, that's it.
There's a...
You have more? Yeah.
Well, it's a response, I'm not saying it's a proper response, but a response that comes in when you start to see some of this blur.
Why don't you pull that chair out?
Is, and this certainly happens when one gets to a choice point that involves one's own timeline more than just the world timeline. It's like...
Well, there is no world timeline to begin with. That's something you need to understand. Is that actually